guess. I mean, shit. See, you gotta give props to furries. But are we recording, by the way?
Uh,
Shit, I was
I'm gonna start the video with "You gotta give props to furries." I hope you know that.
All right. See, look. Here's the thing that's important about the furry stuff, right? So, like, I think they're such a harmless community. They're just fucking, I guess, a little bit socially odd, and they just want to be their animal persona or whatever. They just or their fursona, I guess is what it's called. They just want to be that, and like in the same way, I don't think it makes sense to not allow, I guess, transgender people to identify with their preferred gender pronouns. I don't. In the same way, I think it makes no sense to deny them that right. Because goddamn, man, people harp on the fucking furries so much. They like every cringe compilation probably has a furry in it.
Yeah.
It's just Jesus, man. Like fucking back off. Just let them be animals. Or I guess furry animal. I don't know, dude. It's really confusing, but
Let them be people, but not people, but.
well, they're not people. They're furries, so they're lower. But
Oh God.
no, dude, that's
It's like
okay.
a woman or a black guy.
Oh, do you have to censor that? I feel like you'd have to like imagine that. It's just like a woman or a guy, you know? I think people could kind of fill in the blanks.
They could fill in the blanks with whatever prejudice they hold
Or
themselves.
I think. Oh wow, that's like a. Okay, that's good. It's nice to give wiggle room to people who are prejudicial. I love it.
Like he's talking about the Muslims.
It's just whatever you're hating on. That's why he's talking about my wife. Or,
Yeah, that's what I.
whatever the fuck you want to do.
God damn.
No, but no, that's.
All right.
No, racism is very bad. Do not
Well,
advocate.
if I'm just gonna use this entire fucking video clip, we might as well go ahead and get on topic, and
Shit,
we'll just
okay.
go from there. But
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in like one tiny thing that I was saying about like how we gotta give props to furries because they wear fur suits off a lot of times. Not all of them do, but a lot of time they wear these fucking really hot suits, and it's like 1,000,000,000 degrees. It's like our friend Brandon, where he would sit in his room when it was already like 90 degrees and then crank up a heater.
yeah,
Like, there's goddamn psychopaths, or they're, I don't know, I just think it's cool as shit that they just do that. I don't feel like giving them props, but whatever. Moving on.
yeah, no, Brandon was definitely a psychopath, and I'm so happy our government gave him a gun.
That's so fucked up, dude. It's man. Oh god. We could start about all these different horrible stories, just giving justification and more clarification how fucking crazy Brandon was. But whatever. Let's just talk about his homophobia.
But yeah,
Um,
no, going back to that fucking Facebook post, which I'll provide a screenshot of because I'm not an asshole. Uh, it seems that rampant Islamophobia is a big issue in our country, which is weird considering how much we stress how important people's rights are.
it's definitely really interesting to me because there's an inconsistency, especially with the values that the people who, I guess, peddle Islamophobic positions, the values that they hold that are very similar to I guess, the majority of all Muslims that they choose to attack. They have a similarity, and they don't find they just don't. They're not capable of acknowledging that similarity or the basis for it, right? But then they act like the Muslims are the unique. They're the radical ones with a book of all these horrible atrocities. It's awful, militant, disgusting, immoral shit, and then you crack open the Bible, and it's not that different, really. It bothers me.
Yeah, it's weird, especially whenever you consider the fact that it's basically the same God just by a different fucking name.
It is. It's as far as the chronology of how these religions came about. Yeah, they're all about the same God. They're just maybe some dude. Jesus is kind of ambiguous because there's like really, really little historical evidence for Jesus, but Muhammad is a little bit easier for that. But just basically just a guy coming up being like, hey man, this dude kind of wants you to not touch your dick or whatever, something like that. But no, it's just absolutely so bigoted, and it's funny that people don't notice this. They think that it just makes sense to shit on the Muslims because 9/11 or whatever.
Yeah, and it looking at the comments of that Facebook post just showed me how uninformed our public is because they were saying things like we were founded on Christian ideals and saying that these this I don't know if it's multiple congresswomen currently that are of the Muslim faith, but they were saying, "Oh, look at them. They're destroying us from within just like they promised to do." And all kinds of shit like that. When in reality, they're just normal people. They're just regular people who want to make a difference in the way that they think they should be making a difference. It's no different from any other politician that would come into office.
Yeah, and then like I fucking completely agree with that. It's just, it's you got to take into consideration that there are now, sadly, because of the I guess the more right position has a lot of basis in religiosity, like a lot of the foundation for white people on the right will believe certain things, maybe because of a certain foundation of religion. So it's really common for religion to be at least involved in the political conversation. But if we're going to talk about, I've had conversations with some people who disagree with the efficacy of separation of church and state. They don't agree with it, and they think that that we should have theocracy. But that's an outlier of people. Usually, people think that like it's probably a good idea to not have religious values dictate government rules and laws and so on. But they need to take into consideration that people have views that are different from yours, and they don't necessarily want to impose those views. Because especially if you're a politician, you want to try and you want to represent your people, and your views on religion aren't always indicative of how exactly you're going to try and represent your people. So like it's really silly for them to base. It's kind of an ad hominem in a way if you think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. You should fight the ideas, not the people that are having the ideas.
And man, I agree. Islam sucks. It sucks.
I cannot fucking aim.
I dude, that sounds like me whenever I play Apex. I can't even play Apex and talk, let alone aim and play Apex. So, but no, it's just damn, I lost that point that I was getting. That's something I do quite regularly. I interrupt myself and then forget my point.
Oh no, I definitely interrupted you that time. I'm sorry.
But the oh yes, I do think Islam sucks just as much as I think Christianity sucks, as much as I think Judaism sucks. I think they all suck. I think they're dumb concepts that are based on primitive and archaic forms of thinking, and they're compiled with a bunch of immoral concepts that we wouldn't peddle today. But aside from that, there are some values that I don't care for or don't have a problem with. So because of that, I don't care if people believe, as long as they're not oppressing people or pushing those values, and as long as they're not like talking about how it's actually God. I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent, but it's important that I mention this. Like they try to. It's like one thing if they just have these views and don't push them. It's another thing if they actually try to reconcile or justify the horrible shit that's in their book, like slavery, like Christians and slavery. A common apologetic tactic for people who try to justify the slavery in in Leviticus and Exodus 21:20 and so on. Like when they try to justify it by saying that, oh well, it's not the same. It's not like chattel slavery. You know, it's not like the transatlantic slave trade. You know, it's not like that sort of thing. It's just different slavery, just with as if like different slavery is better. It's but even then, it's not even correct. They say it's indentured servitude, but it's not exactly what it is, and it's just very dishonest. But regardless, I don't really care about that kind of stuff. Or, if people are religious,
they also really like to say, "Oh, that wasn't from the New Testament. That's the Old Testament." As if, but the fact of the matter is, it's still fucking talked about it.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter because there's apparently I would assume if you defend the idea of an omnibenevolent being, or you use 3 omnis to describe it, that if it's omniscient, it probably has continuity of expectations, which means that if it knows everything and it's all good, then it will come to all good. It has already come to all good conclusions entirely. Because if it knows everything, and there's no way to change your mind, you know everything, but you can't be given new information. So, given that, this deity comes around in early Judaistic texts and comes around and peddles a very different attitude as to what is common in the New Testament. Completely different. Like you try and put them side by side, they're just not the same God, even though they are. And regardless if it's the New Testament or the Old Testament, it's still the Bible, and it's still used to. It's still the same God. You're saying that there's continuity in his expectations throughout the entire Bible, and that's a problem because that means that God was okay with slavery.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a valid point. No, it's fine. If anything, it's a good thing because I'm not very good at talking a lot. But
I think you should more. You have a lot of good points oftentimes.
I think that the problem definitely comes from people not wanting to acknowledge the horrible things that have been done in the name of their own religion. Yet they seem very militant about basically demonizing an entirely different group of people that are in the exact same boat as them. They're just trying to live and worship their own religion while ignoring all of the awful things that were done in the name of their religion.
It's like they're kind of the Christian and the Muslim are kind of like two people in a boat, right? They're in the same boat, but they're both in vegetative states, so both of them are retarded and have no idea what the fuck anything is. So they don't know of each other, and that's the funny thing. Is like I don't actually think people. Now this is very general, and I'm only speaking to a specific kind of about a specific kind of people. But I think that they don't even because there are people who will try to suppress obvious contradictions in their position to try and make them look more justified. They'll like not talk about things that clearly aren't that don't support them. But I think some religious people don't even know that their Bible is bad because they don't read it. They have no clue that it advocates these horrible things that would be easily comparable to Islam. So they don't think that it's similar because, they only hear the, love thy neighbor as thyself. They hear that the Sermon on the Mount, they hear Jesus coming around and healing the blind and all this crazy shit they think about when they talk about Christianity, and they forget everything else. So I think that has a big factor in this situation. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a important variable to discuss.
But now to address, because oh my god, man, these comments are, whew, they're something.
I can't type.
Really,
Yeah, no, it's a lot of people who are definitely uninformed about what they're talking about.
I don't know. It's just it's troublesome because I've spoken on things that I wasn't wrong. That's the thing everybody's gonna do. Everybody's gonna talk a little bit about something that they may overestimate their understanding of it first, but it's about trying to minimize that as much as you possibly can and try to even to not fall into the Dunning-Kruger effect, to not be another example of that, to try and think that, oh, okay, you read a couple the words that are, or maybe you read an article or two about something that gave a biased viewpoint that motivated you to believe the way you do, but that's not rational, and like it's good to try and be skeptical about your I guess your confidence or your expertise, because like you have to even think, even if you know it really well, because I can confidently say that I read a lot of philosophy stuff. I do. I'm a layman, and I know very little about as far as the academic aspect, but I read a lot about it. So I could probably have a pretty decent conversation with somebody who is educated on it. But I know that I'm not. I'm not fully educated on the matter, and I'm absolutely not an authority in any situation. So given that, I understand that there is a lot of information I don't have. A lot of people don't grasp this. So that's I think is a problem.
Yeah, people are still very scared of being wrong, which is what I think is the main root of that problem, is people thinking that there's something wrong with being wrong. And I don't know, I follow the mentality that if you're never wrong, then you'll never learn anything.
I mean, that's exactly how it is, because it's just, I do think that there are a lot of people that cause this societal problem, this embarrassment about being wrong, because there's this get wrecked kind of I guess mentality on the internet, like especially with cringe compilations and people talking about SJWs. Well, they'll find a few outliers that are a little bit extremist, and then they'll fucking just lose it with criticizing them for being wrong about something, right? And it's not like reasonable criticism, it's like direct, straight mockery and just belittlement, which causes people to, I guess the more emotional people, to respond negatively to that. And I don't think that's like an all-encompassing statement, but I think that that's a very important factor in when it comes to that. But I don't know, it's just it's complicating. It really is.
Yeah, no, it definitely ties into what was going on in the comment section of that post. I commented trying to talk about it from kind of a rational point of view, saying that this logic doesn't make sense. If you apply it here, you can see how it doesn't make sense. And I immediately got met with people talking shit instead of actually trying to have an intelligent discussion about things from a rational point of view.
And it's also the thing, like you were mentioning, it's totally fine to be wrong. You are going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong. Everybody's going to be wrong about something. It's just about how exactly you pursue and how exactly you prevent how you're wrong. because it's one thing to state a few things that may be a little bit confused, or maybe there's some equivocation, or maybe there's some facts that you aren't aware of that contradict your position. It's one thing to present those logically and under the pretenses that you're trying to actually make a reasonable point, and then be shown that you're not correct, be like via evidence or via syllogism or via good argument, just whatever it is. So that's fine. There's no problem with that. You have to be challenged in order to either one, articulate well in your views if they're right, or to correct them. So that's fine. But then when people just come at you and just, as if like they like attack you like you're the enemy for being wrong or you're an idiot, when literally the antithesis of being an idiot is being wrong sometimes and acknowledging that. That's acknowledging that you have faults and that you need to learn more. So granted, there are a little bit difference. There are some differences in being wrong. Some people can be really, 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 really wrong for malicious purposes. So, fuck those people.
Like
Like
Donald Trump.
anti-vaxxers. Fuck those people.
Oh, I was talking about Donald Trump, but yeah, anti-vaxxers definitely.
Yeah. Oh gosh, jeez, man, that's a conversation.
That's yeah. Anti-vaxxers are really weird because it's people who acknowledge scientific consensus in every other portion of their lives, but whenever it comes to, vaccinate your goddamn kids, they're like, no, science is lying to me.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of an issue.
Oh dear Lord.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm being murdered. Continue.
Oh shit. I'm gonna have to hop in there in a little bit and start like save your ass. But God, man, it's quite irritating, especially the anti-vax thing. It's it's established science, and it's one thing that, like, say nutrition, right? If you want to talk about nutrition, things get a little bit weird because there's so much variation from human to human, and there's consistency from here and there about how bodily functions work, but there's also a lot of variance, and because of that, it's kind of hard to make, unless you have, like, you use very specific, I don't know, like randomized trials or something like that, a type of study that, like, if you factor out certain things, I guess that make your study more correct with nutrition, I guess that's fine. But it's just there are studies that may show one thing, like there are studies that show a connection between red meats, eating large amounts of red meats, and I guess large amounts of LDL cholesterol, and it leading to atherosclerosis. Like there was those that exist, and then there are studies that show no consistencies or like no correlation. I mean, so that's more difficult to have conversation about because it's kind of gray, but things with vaccines, it's straightforward. There is only one, and this isn't even an exaggeration. There's one fucking study that was discredited. This guy named Andrew Wakefield, I think is his name.
Yeah, he even admitted it was falsified. Yeah,
he admitted it was false. He retracted the study because it was peer reviewed out the ass, and it was just everyone was like, whoa, your methods and your abstract is just garbage. But no, and the conclusions are silly too. And there's literally nothing else. It's just, how can you be that more willfully ignorant when you try to cite a study that doesn't have any more weight because it's retracted? I don't know. It's just literally the basis of that isn't all scientific and credulity. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it definitely ties into people wanting to have that inside information. They want to know something you don't know. They want to be against the status quo. It's like whenever people say, oh, microwaves and cell phones can give you cancer, even though there is a very small amount of information that suggests that that's possible. And there's an overwhelming majority of studies and shit that has shown that it's not a thing that happens. But they take that small amount of studies that were either done poorly or the facts were misconstrued, and they say, see, look, that's proof.
Yeah, see, that's the hard thing, too, is like, I think there's a lot of conversation that people who are educated and experts have where they communicate the very complicated, jargon-filled findings of their information that they come across. Right, that's great. There are some websites or I guess web pages that are dedicated to this, and it's good. I like that kind of conversation because not everybody can wrap their head around and I mean, hell, that's actually something I've been struggling with for the past few months now. I've been trying to familiarize myself with the different types of studies, how they work, and the statistics that goes into factoring out certain things, and things like relative risk and absolute risk and hazard risk, like all these different, like, really important things when you start talking about, like, clinical trials, and you start talking about just scientific studies in general, like longitudinal studies, you start talking about cross-sectional, like all these different things that are really important to understand when you read a study. You need to know, like, what it is, and it's just, you need to have this critical thinking ability to sift through even information that's proposed by experts to even possibly find inconsistencies in the reasoning. But again, that requires a very, very large amount of I guess, uh, recreational education to understand that. And I get that that's really hard for people to do. So when they find one study, they hear the word study, and then they're like, ah, well, that it says this, so like that's my point. So that's clearly true. And I don't know. I think that's a serious issue.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole lot of confirmation bias that comes into play whenever you're talking about things like this.
Yeah. And I just always like shut me off whenever I'm talking too much. Because I'm well aware that I do that, and I'm really bad about it. I feel as if like I get this horrible feeling inside of me if I don't finish a point. So if it's
No, when it
I
comes
don't want to
to
talk you out of the fucking.
a majority of the subjects that we've been talking about here recently, you are definitely more well informed than I am. So I have
I
no problem letting you take the reins, so to speak.
You've got more political understanding than I do because when it comes to the politics of the situation, especially economics, I'm so illiterate when it comes to the economic aspect of politics. I really only indulge in the social conversation because I do think it's really important because like I just don't have the fucking expertise to I guess duke it out with somebody who understands the economics, and you understand it a little bit definitely better than I do, and that's something to be taken into consideration. I just like philosophy and some science shit, and that's all I fucking really care about.
Yeah, no, those are definitely interesting topics. As far as politics goes, it's not something that I want to talk about. It's become so relevant, especially under our current administration, for people to become I want to say more educated on politics, just so shit like what's happening now doesn't happen in the future, where we have these
Yeah,
uneducated assholes just running shit however they want.
yeah, it's quite remarkable. And as much as I get the whole American tradition thing of anybody over 35 being able to run for president. Anybody, like any person, as long as you get backing, as long as you get financial support, you're good. Or and as long as you identify as one of two parties, because if you come across as an independent, what are you doing? You're gonna get nowhere. But so that's I mean that's just how it is. Like I really think the politics conversation is important because politics is really is a huge category of philosophy. Like there's things like philosophy of law, which philosophy of law is a super big category that has to do with like how exactly we give moral condemnation, how we hold people morally accountable, and how we implement that into our government. So things like that is just very important to have. And the social values are super philosophy, like everything there about morals, everything about ethics, everything about like conversation and dialogue and arguments and reason, all that shit is just all philosophy. But it's just the economic part of it. I really need to. I need to like study micro and macroeconomics because like I just fucking phase out without it. I'm just really bad about it.
Man, the only reason I'm knowledgeable on it at all is because high school, which is weird. The one thing that I learned in high school that actually stuck with me was a little bit of economic stuff. But that's mainly because, like with physics, there was a kid that I basically had to teach the lessons to because our teachers were assholes and they were completely incompetent. But
Yeah,
my
as
teacher,
expected.
my teacher got on to me for talking to the kid that sat beside me when all I was doing was explaining the lesson to him because he was lost.
Yeah, I would totally lie and say that whenever I was in high school and I was a dumb cunt. I would talk to somebody about some bullshit, and then they'd be like, "Well, why are you talking? You need to stop." I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just explaining the fucking subject." No, but I get you. You probably very much were, and that's bullshit. So I get that.
Yeah, no, dude.
But
I when it came to being in school, I very rarely talked to people because I wanted to talk to them.
yeah, it was not. The only time I got really, really, really social, I guess, was when I completely sacrificed my personality for trying to be popular. I didn't really know what being popular meant. I still don't really know, but no. Oh no, that's not good. I gotta handle those birds. This is not gonna work.
So for all three of you that are listening, Christian has birds.
Okay, I'm back. I have some gorgeous budgies, and they like to talk, so it happens. So, what was the point we were? discussing something about school?
We were talking about economics, and then we started talking about how awful school was.
Well, yeah, I guess. And like as much as I think that it might be a little bit off topic, I don't think we would need to be on topic. Man, I can't tell you how many fucking podcasts, how many videos that I've just listened where people just shit talk, and then it gets, I don't know.
Yeah, no, we've
I think
already.
people might be interested in listening to our bullshit.
Yeah, we've already gone horribly off topic.
No, but I was talking about school and how I sacrificed my individuality for being popular, which I didn't think I was doing. I really thought that I was just like, people liked me. But then I realized, like, the more I hung around people, the more I kind of exhibited their behaviors. And this was, like, in the 6th grade. I just fucking really wanted to be popular. Just all I cared about. So, like, I tried to join football. Yeah, just everything. I just... Oof, really bad. But, after 7th grade, I was just like, fuck people. And then I was a horrible kid, too. I was really troublesome. I would try and, like, argue with... Yeah, it's really bad. I don't think that's something... whatever. We'll just move on for that. I dream about it. It's already hard enough, so...
Man, I'm not going to lie to you. I did argue with my teachers quite a bit, but that's because a lot of them were weirdly authoritative in, like, in scenarios where it didn't make sense for them to be authoritative. Like, they were swinging their dick around specifically because they had a dick to swing around.
That man, that's so, like, I can, hell, like, just parents in general, because, like, what are teachers? Teachers are just kind of, like, I mean, they're basically educational parents off time, aside from the fact that they don't have to, like, take care of you, but they're still responsible for talking to you, for possibly helping you through things when you're at school, and for educating you. So in that way, you know, I guess they have the same authoritative, like, perspective about, like, oh, I'm the adult, and I've been around longer, so I clearly know more than... And this is the thing, too. They always pull that card. Whenever I've had times in, like, high school, actually, I was in fucking criminal justice, and my teacher just straight up, like, when I was talking about, the subject was us, each group was trying to find some kind of controversy to debate. So any two positions, so any contradictories that we could find, we just have to argue them, right? So I was going to pull up creationism and evolution, because that was the one that I was paying a lot of attention to at the time, and I felt like I knew a lot about.
It's a very bad idea for public school.
Yeah, very well. Everybody on my table agreed with me. I mean, I was able to provide every line of reasoning, every website that cites all of the sources and all of the evidence for why evolution is a clear fact, and the theory of evolution by natural selection is the only myriad of mechanisms that explains biodiversity. So I was explaining these things, right, in a very rudimentary layman sense. And my teacher completely disagreed with me, and he said that evolution's all bullshit because where do apes come from? Where do monkeys come from? It's like your typical... very incredulous talking points. And God, I just couldn't believe he was telling me I was wrong, and he was just basically using his religion to tell me I was wrong, and this happened in public school, and it's just fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, that's definitely way more of an extreme example that I was going to pull up. I was going to talk about Miss Hatchet. Do you remember her at all?
Give me a minute. Miss Hatchet. Oh gosh, that's such a familiar name. What did she do again?
She was one of the assistant principals. I forget, we had multiple, and she was incredibly pretentious.
Was she the tall black lady?
Yeah, she was the tall black chick.
Okay, I very much recall her because, oh man, I know you're gonna talk about a thing, but I think actually we were hanging out actually. We were. You good, man? I'm sorry, dude. I didn't get the text. It's my bad. It's right there. Apron. Sorry, Samantha came in urgently. My bad, dude.
No, it's all good. It's fine. We have plenty of...
Definitely gonna have to cut that out, but... just the, what was the thing that I was gonna... Oh, yeah, Miss Hatchet. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. I think me and you were hanging out, and we were, like... We went in a certain area and started talking some shit about something, and then we were trying to walk into the cafeteria a certain way, and then we were told that wasn't the correct way to walk into the cafeteria. Was that right?
Oh, yes, I remember that shit. They were like, you can't go this way, you have to follow this path.
And everybody was in a line?
And there was no reason for them doing it. Like, we found out that there was no like mess that had to be cleaned up. There was no reason for us being corralled that way, other than them wanting us to go that way.
Yeah, it's just I think they were trying a new thing to try and keep everybody grouped together, but they didn't realize by grouping everybody together, you were literally dictating where you can stand. And I don't know. I get that you have to do that sometimes, but like, fuck, it's a cafeteria, man. You can't just expect everybody to stay in a line. It's Jesus. It's irrational. But yeah, Miss Hatchet, she was a cunt.
Yeah, I was walking in the hallway with some friends, and this girl that I knew named Desiree, she was kicking my backpack. just jokingly. She was just kind of like slapping her little foot against my backpack. I turned around, pointed at her, and I said, "If you do that again, I'm gonna kill you and your whole fucking family." And
Oh
then,
my god,
and
I
then
fucking
they all laughed. They all laughed. And then Miss Hatchet goes, "Excuse me," and I just looked at her and I was like, "Oh no, that's an authority figure, quote unquote." And she pulled me to her office, called my dad, and told me that she was not pulling me out because I cussed. She pulled me out because I didn't apologize for cussing in front of her.
Wait. So she heard you say the thing about killing someone's family, and that's her
Yes.
objection?
Yes, she told me. She told me it was because I did not apologize for cussing.
What? And in response, like, I'm sorry, but fuck you. This would be my response.
I started laughing at her whenever she was talking to my dad on the phone, and she was like, "Yeah," and he thinks it's all a big joke, and I was like, "Yeah, this is completely asinine."
Yeah, it's just, I mean, absolutely silly. It really was. But, like, I had a funny thing that happened to me one time. I was at the sicko that was behind my old house. She came in, and this was when I dropped out of high school, and, I had that time I was fucking really having an issue. But she came in, and she was just talking to me, and then she's like, "Did you go to Oh, no. Did you go to Stewart's Creek?" And I was like, "No." I just told her no. I just said no. I didn't. I'm sorry. And she just walked away. It was so fucking hilarious because I know I fucked with her because it was just shortly after I dropped out, so she knew who I was. But I know it was just fucking with her because I told her no, and then she was so confused. Sorry, man. It's just so fucking hilarious.
No, I mean, what would she have said to you? Yes, you did. She couldn't. There's no response she could have.
And she could be like, "You need to come with me to my." And then realize she's in a fucking sicko. Like, bro, you're not gonna pull that card on me here, bro. Like, I'll drop kick you like over the fucking counter, man. Come on. No, really though. About the Islamophobia thing.
Oh fuck
guess,
yeah, we had a topic.
Yeah, we did. I mean, well, Jesus, I guess we've had like 180 topics. But regardless, that's gonna be a typical, and I don't think it's a problem. I think it's interesting. I feel like at least people can go, wow, look at those sad dickheads. At least.
Fuck.
At least that's what you can get. If any 2 or 3 people listen to this, like, that's what they'll get out of it. They'll get like, wow, look at these assholes. Like, I want to be the reason for making people feel better. Because they can look at my shit and go, wow, that's bad. And be like, at least I'm not that guy. No,
making people feel
really.
better by comparison.
What?
You're making people feel better by comparison.
How bad I am,
yeah.
They see how shitty everything I do is, then they're like.
Suddenly having an autistic kid's not that bad.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, man. That's like.
Oh, they shot me in the air.
Oh, dude, I have to fucking start playing more of that character, the new character. But don't tell me. Don't say it. Don't say it. God damn it. What's that character's name? Is fucking. I know everything about him. I just can't get the name. The name is. I can't. It's gone. I can't get it. What is it?
Octopus.
The jump pad guy.
Octopus.
Octopus? That's
yeah,
good.
His name's Octopus. It's
What a good guy.
It's fucking Octane.
It's a dope name. But
he is definitely.
I wanted to say Ozymandias.
What?
I don't know why I wanted to say that. I know that was wrong. I knew for some reason that popped in my head, and I was like, "Where did you get?" No, I struggled with
What
my
the
brain.
fuck?
I don't know. Please, man, give me a break here. It was just.
I really want to, but I can't.
It's just. It's fair. I mean, it's not that weird. It's fine. But no. I guess like we could kind of dive a little bit more into the issue about how prejudicial and like I guess you could kind of segue this into the transgender problem. A lot of people talk about the LGBT issues and then you get your Jordan Petersons and you get those people that stand up. Yeah, I know. I really think the guy is a fucking very articulate and intelligent dude in psychology. Just sit down and take some notes when he has to talk about psychology, but shut the fuck up. That's basically just shut up. Everything else, oh my god. I would suggest you listen to Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson argue what truth is, because it's fucking insufferable. But anyways, that's a little bit off topic. I don't really care much about George Peterson. I just disagree with him so much about the. And okay, so in I think there are bits and pieces of some universities in the state. Raven, can you like not? Come on, bro. Here, you go. She was just slapping coasters. I have coasters, and she was just slapping them. I don't understand. But no, but with the trans issue and Jordan Peterson, one the points that I just never really understood were, see, here are the options. If somebody is trans and they want to be called one of three pronouns, I think the only reasonable ones to use are one of three. So either you use he, she, or they.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just that just makes sense. It covers pretty much any gauge of masculinity or femininity. It doesn't really matter. So the new pronouns are unnecessary. Um, but given that the new pronouns that people proposed, I think there were like only a couple universities that even fucking entertained the idea, and then it just like I mentioned, this get wrecked community where the people who just want to shit on SJWs all the time and use a few outliers or a few loud extremists to counter an entire leftist ideology. It's just that'll happen. But like oh, sorry, man, my cat's just like. But it's just whenever you have the two options of somebody who identifies as trans and they want to be called, say they're a trans woman, so they want to be called she. You know, that's what they want. And they may not look it. They say maybe they were a burly buff guy or something like that, and then they wanted to be a woman, and they're kind of transitioning to it. Like that's a hard process to do. So maybe you're not fucking convincing. But I would say some straight people who have, I guess cis would be the word, don't look like what they identify as. So it's exactly the same thing. And I'm not going to ask you to like whip your dick out or spread your legs to prove to me. But if somebody says, hey, I want to be called this, what the hell is any objection you could have to that?
There really aren't any other than I don't want.
But you really is just I don't want it because freedom of speech. Like no, it's just you can get sure you can have freedom of speech. In the same way, I think you should be able to fly a Nazi flag on your front porch. You should be able to wear a Nazi whatever. Like if you whatever you want, you could do all these things. But you need to know that it comes with implications, and those implications are being a fucking asshole. That in like as much as I would try to not use that as the argument that they're an asshole. Like you can easily have a dialogue with these people and show why what they're saying is ridiculous. But my point being is that it's just more about the person's feelings. And then the funny thing is that they'll say SJWs are feeling based, but then they'll be all upset and hot and bothered. I guess that's not really the right phrasing, but you get my point. They get really just, I guess, triggered. Fuck it. They'll get to that point and they'll be like, well, I don't want to call them what they want to be called. I want to call them what I want to. And that's just that doesn't hold to any good line of reasoning whatsoever. It's just indecent.
Yeah, it's definitely it's freedom of speech means well, does it mean freedom of consequences? You can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean people aren't going to look at you and be like, you're a fucking prick.
Yeah, and just a little bit of a digression that's kind of important to that too is when Trump suggested that the people should be possibly fined or imprisoned for burning the United States flag. That is a huge attack on free speech, and people just like holy shit. People think that like they're the I guess traditionalist conservatives are the people who are really in his ballpark, aside from the white nationalist racists that are also batting for him. But given that they just don't. Oh, Raven, come on, bro, come on. I love you to death, but you really can't be sitting. But shit, I forgot my point. Fuck. You just kind of put me back on the rails.
I was trying to remember what you said before the cat defense, but I honestly don't know where you were going with that.
No, I was just.
You were talking about Trump's voter base and their
right.
yeah.
Yes, Trump. That put me back. Okay. Yeah, I was just talking about how people whose voter base really they highly advocate like the Bill of Rights, you know, the amendments to I guess the Constitution, and they think that it's incredibly important. Like the First Amendment, they'll always be like First Amendment's important because they'll say a bunch, especially the white nationalist racists. They love the fuck out of the First Amendment because that's the only way that they can technically be racist and it'd be whatever. But anyways, they'll promote how important it is, and then their literal fucking leader says something that is so anti-free speech. I literally couldn't believe it. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like they believe in the First Amendment as long as you're not using it to criticize them.
And that's the whole fucking point of the First Amendment was to criticize
your
very
government,
largely
yeah.
established governments. It's just so they have power, yes, but so do you. They have power because you do. That's the point as a person. It's like you should be able to stand up and be like, look, I disagree with these things, or I believe this. And the dialogue about whether or not you say you're saying something's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. The dialogue should be left with the people, and the consequences should also be left with the people, given that they're reasonable and you're not attacking Muslims. Because, like, contrary to, I guess, popular belief, I don't think it's reasonable to punch a Nazi. I don't. It's just fucking absolutely not okay.
Yeah, it's like I keep saying, battle the ideas, not the person.
And yes, you can. And then that's the thing, is that you don't realize exactly what you're doing whenever you, act with physical violence towards a person, or even act with like emotional, I guess, instability. When you get really mad that somebody doesn't believe what you're saying, or someone says something different. Because then that makes them solidify their, especially if you punch the fucking Nazi dude. That'll solidify the hell out of their viewpoint. Because they think that you got so mad, that you were so triggered by the facts, that their position is just more justified. So it's just, the impact is just, it's insane. It really is. A lot of topics we've talked shit about, but it's just, it's important.
Yeah, no, it's definitely if you take into account those the Nazis, the people wearing Nazi paraphernalia and marching with the tiki torches, yelling Nazi phrases. The whole argument that's going on with like Islamophobia is basically, if we shared that same mentality, we would treat every white Christian as if they are marching with tiki torches. And it's completely stupid. It doesn't make any fucking sense to do it.
We really have this, I guess, this problem with lumping people into categories too easily. And it's fine if you fit into a category and you're very confident in your categorization of yourself, but it's really easy for people to overgeneralize. And they found a few. This is exactly like the whole Islamophobic issue, right? They find a few outliers to. And here's the thing: when terrorism happens, or things like horrible things are done in the motivation of religion, it's because of some of the things that they may be around sociopolitically, or even some of the things that they might identify factually. It might be the religion too. It's those things, those ideas are what lead to this. That, and I guess a few other things, but you can challenge those ideas themselves, and I do think that that's like what you should do. You should challenge the thought process and the ideas to try and, I guess, minimize the possible effect that it may have on people, and maybe prevent, horrible shit. But like I mentioned, you can't overgeneralize, because it's so easy to do that when you are literally a pattern-seeking machine. It's so easy to just, oh, this Muslim, there's another Muslim. Syria, fuck, everybody sucks. Every Muslim sucks. It's like, they get that. It's not that. I get why they do it. It's just not rational.
Yeah, that's a big problem we have, is people acting rationally, their logic needing to be consistent, but we don't really see a whole lot of that, because we don't really have a standard for what we hold to be true that's like actively taught. We just kind of very lazily discuss these things in school and then ignore them completely when they actually need to be implemented.
Yeah, the academic field, or I guess the early academia, you could say, when it comes to school, is really important. I think that even, I'm kind of torn about whether or not it should be voluntary or not. I think it probably should be involuntary, because I think just, it's really hard to, I don't really know if I have an answer for that, but just education is super important. It really is. And the way that we go about it, and God, man, especially my education in particular, just very specifically, I was so underwhelmed. And when I was in physics, I learned a whole lot, because, man, that teacher, he was an absolute brilliant man.
You're lucky. I had to teach myself and 4 other people physics because my teacher had a brain tumor.
Oh, oh, Jesus. All right. Yikes. I was going to talk some shit, and then I realized that that's actually probably true. And I thought you were exaggerating for a second.
Fuck no. He came in and told us about how they did surgery. They cut out a piece of his skull, and then they said that the tumor popped up like a mushroom.
Oh, that's fucking good.
Yeah, that's disturbing is what it is.
That's horrible. I mean, that's a horrible imagery. Now I have to go to bed with that. That's great. Now I have to look at mushrooms and try not to think of them in skulls popping out in protruding fashions. So that'll be tough. But moving on.
Fuck.
Oh, man, but, like, I had great teachers. I had very informative teachers that were educated themselves. It wasn't even that they were following the academic syllabus. They were just educated, and they would fill in areas that the syllabus didn't. So that was great. It was
intelligent, educated individuals kind of deviating from the course. It's what would happen all the time. Can't tell you how many times we would talk about like Big Bang cosmology. We would talk about the Big Crunch and like all of the, I guess the Earth, all of the universe condensing back into a singularity, or it continuing to expand before it goes all cold. Like so many different ideas in physics we talked about that had nothing to do with the class, but it was so informative. So, given that, I've also learned basically nothing in other subjects, like English. English taught me nothing, because aside from like my early upbringing where I learned like grammar and punctuation, and how stories work, and the basic stuff like that. But English, they try to touch up on a category of critical thinking. They really try. So, in English, I learned about logical, the different types of logical reasoning of inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. Little did I know, there's much more than that, and it's fucking much more complicated than that. And it's just I was taught basically nothing on how to challenge viewpoints, how to determine whether or not things are fallacious. Like I never got taught a real, like how many actual fallacies are out there. It just never was taught to me, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah, that just further goes into what people say about how high school is basically just glorified daycare. Or, well, school in general.
Yeah, and it just kind of gets you in the routine of working, working a 40-hour.
Yeah.
So that's, I find that, I guess that's fine. It's just like, that's cool and all. I mean, I like the social aspect of it. I think like getting to be around people is probably good, but, it's not. Now, there are people that actually, like groups of parents, and fucking Samantha's mom happens to be one of these people, but they're like, maybe she doesn't think of it now, but she at least did a while ago, but happens to, she would challenge Noah. Noah had these, he still does actually, I forgot what the fucking schooling is called, but it's basically like a type of schooling that's experimental, that's done in other countries, where all you do is you pursue things you find interesting, rather than be taught things whether or not you find them interesting. So she would counter, or also, and a lot of this academic pursuit would have to do with like kind of being antisocial, or maybe I guess like not necessarily being as socially integrated as a regular public school. So the argument would be you can't like have social skills if you don't go to school, and I think it's bullshit.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just people trying to justify going to school every day I mean, I guess school's fine. Like I said, I mean, people have been educating themselves with a school like routine for fucking hundreds of years, and I think it's been great. But I just don't think it's as effective as it should be, especially with the critical thinking, which I honestly I think the learning about reason, learning about how to be rational, learning how to make arguments, learning what evidence is, learning about what evidence applies where, learning about lines of reasoning, logical fallacies, and the difference between logical, a logical inconsistency, or like, I'm sorry, let me explain this a little bit more specifically in terminology. There's logical validity and there's logical soundness. I was taught neither of these, and they're so important. The validity of an argument has to do with its form. It's do the actual premises necessitate the conclusion. It doesn't matter if they're true. It just means do the premises given actually yield the conclusion? Like, I mean, if I were to say like I don't know, all budgies speak Spanish, and then I guess I guess my bird's a budgie, and the conclusion would be that my budgie speaks Spanish. That would be correct. That would be logically valid. But it's clearly, then it gets to the other issue, that the soundness of it. It's about whether or not the premises are true, and that has to do with. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but it's important to know those things, because just that alone could have helped me so much in understanding arguments and how to make them and what reason is, and they didn't teach me that. It was just very upsetting.
Dude, you just reminded me of something. Do you know who Charlie Kirk is?
Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, he's like this super right-wingy guy for this thing called Turning Point USA. And he was, I guess he was debating someone about something, and they were talking about something that you learn in school becoming less true as you get older. And he was like, so things you learn in school become less true as you get older. And then he started bringing up things that you can't really disprove, like gravity and things. But he didn't mention the things that we learned in school that were definitely not true. Which is weird, because there is an overwhelming amount of things that we learned in school that are just blatantly false.
Yes. There are a myriad of reasons for that. Like, I guess one of them can be like things in biology textbooks that weren't necessarily accurate, like I was taught the let's see, it's how the tongue works and the different regions that perceive different tastes. I was taught that, and that's not true. The tongue is much more complicated than that. But that's just because like they found new evidence that countered what was taught. So like that happens. That's one thing. It's like, for example, there were textbooks, and I don't know if you know who Kent Hovind is, but he fucking loves to bring this up because Kent Hovind's a big creationist. So probably the biggest, honestly. But he bring up how like some textbooks would have incorrect information, but that's just based on what they currently knew at the time. Like at one point they thought the universe was 20 billion years old, but then more accurate findings came to be. Well, okay, they thought this, but they actually said that there was an error range within like 5 billion years or 7 billion years, something like that. So it still worked for what we know now, that the universe is 13.7 billion years. So, but still, it wasn't technically correct. But then there are things that are just fucking wrong as shit. And then this is the reason why I take a lot of the education that I got in school with a grain of salt, as far as how I remember things. Because I was taught some wrong shit, man. I was taught that blood was blue in elementary school.
Oh yeah, I remember
I was taught
that
that
shit.
if you hold your nose and sneeze, or if you like, yeah, if you try and pinch your nose while you sneeze, your ribs will break. I was also told that. God, man, I was told so many bullshit. I was told that the Earth is closer to the sun in the summer than it is in the winter, and that's
Yeah.
wrong.
How about the tides? They told us that the tides
Yeah.
move in and out, but that's not what happens. It just appears to move in and out.
Yeah, it's a distribution of force that goes through the water, and because the force is being enacted upon by the Earth and by the Moon, so that tidal lock is like it's shooting a wave of like force, and it's like grabbing the water in a way, causing it to ripple and move and do all that crazy shit. So it's just so, I don't know, it's so many things that I just wasn't taught, or I was just taught completely incorrectly, that really aggravated me. And then I would like talk about it and think that because I learned it in school that it was true, and then it was just fucking wrong, and then I felt like an idiot. So it was just, man, there's so many other things that I was taught that was just basically wrong shit. Let's see. Oh man, me and Samantha we would go on for days about all the dumb shit that we were taught in school that was just never really. Well, I mean, I guess one thing that I did have happen was I was in ROTC, and because I was in ROTC, it was really common for the instructors to actually, or specifically one of the instructors, to push religious values onto the kids, even though it's illegal. It still was done. So I guess in a way I was told about God and stuff, and it was in a school setting, which was really weird. But I don't know, it's so many dumb things I was taught.
That's really weird how people can technically get around doing things like that, even though they're definitely not allowed to do that.
It's just, some people probably don't. Okay, it's technically wrong to invoke your religious perspective to a bunch of people that, because we live in a multicultural society, so it wouldn't make sense to push your rhetoric and your reasoning onto other people about. Okay, let me not say reasoning, because I don't really think much good reasoning is involved when it comes to religious thinking. But that's just my fedora talking. So, no, but it's one thing to when you push these very very relative views that you have on the people. It's just not good. You can't do that, right? Because like somebody may be a Muslim, or somebody might not be religious like I was, or somebody may be a Buddhist, or it's just not fair. But a lot of people identify as Christian, so nobody saw a problem with it, because they're Christian, so it resonated well with them. But that's the problem, I guess. They can do it because it resonates well with the people he speaks to, even though it's wrong.
No, that definitely makes. It's like with the fucking horribly incorrect shit that Donald Trump says. Nobody questions it because they enjoy the fact that someone they agree with is saying those things.
Yeah, when they would. I remember the most common talking point for Trump supporters was that he speaks his mind. That was like when he was really campaign. That's what people said they loved about him. And I was like, how is that unique?
Yeah, it's like you can't speak your mind and be a dumb shit at the same time, right?
It's like but how's it unique in a personality? Because like, yeah, people speak their mind all the time, and they just aren't bigoted assholes when they do so, or they have better ways. Okay, I think that since Trump is an idiot, or at least pretend, I don't know. There's some people that believe he's a troll or whatever, but I think he's an idiot, and I think because he's an idiot, his way he talks resonates well with idiots. So I think it just might be that, but it still isn't helpful considering he's such a fucking influential figure and he's saying these things, and it's just, it really it makes me sad, honestly.
Yeah, definitely instilled in me an urgency to educate myself and those around me on these subjects, so that way people like him could never be elected again.
Yeah, and that's why I voted. Fuck, they had a major election recently. Not recently, like six months ago or something like that. And I went and I got a registration and I voted because I want to contribute. I, I want to do that because I know that there are a whole lot of people that think that voting is unnecessary, and of course if they were to vote then it would have been important, it would have had a different result, but that's why I have to do it now. But I was going to say something that's happening in May.
The march.
Yeah, the March for Science. I've never been to them. I've seen some things that are kind of questionable because some people who go there for the March for Science have like a religious view about science. It's like a funny thing. I just wanted to just like a little bit tangent point. This just real quick. It's possible completely for people to have like a religious kind of thinking for something. But I mean that was basically it, really. What else do you want to try and like touch up on? I feel like this is going pretty decent for the first time, so I feel like it worked pretty well.
Yeah, we're already running about an hour long.
Well, that's good, and you can honestly post that whole fucker. It's like, as much as it's an hour long, you know, it's content.
Yeah, it's something.
So, I don't really care, and I just want to get content out there so I can get better at it. And I was going to tell you that I don't know, I really want to try and like involve myself in the community of people that I've been talking to recently. Because there's a lot of very intelligent guys out there, man. A lot of shit I could learn from, and hell, if I could even be just like a little bit interesting enough to like publicly talk to these people, that would be pretty nice. But that'll take work. So we're gonna try to do this thing. But fuck, we could like hit any. I mean, dude, you can honestly like name this video. You were like, Islamophobia, religion, transgender. I don't fucking know. Like, we have so many topics, dude. I don't know what the hell the name of the video. Cause it's just whatever, man. But like, I guess just to, I guess we could just sum up the Islamophobia issue. And I honestly, you know what, dude? I think I could just get a few comments and talk about it. I feel like that'd be probably.
Yeah, if you want to pull up the page and
yeah, I'll do it.
Do me a favor and take screenshots of the comments, because I'd like to provide the comment as we're discussing it.
Yeah. So I'm not like just making up a person and then trying to say that they said a thing. Because like I don't know, I feel like that'd be really impractical, and I would have to be a super creative asshole to come up with some of these names. But maybe I am. Who knows? So let's see. Let's start at the top. See what I can get here. I'm gonna. All right. So please do not forget they are attacking us every day by a person named Loretta. What do you mean every day? How are they attacking us every day?
Yeah, the only people I see attacking us are American citizens.
I mean, yeah, like just think about the fucking the horrible shootings that have been happening recently, and like the fact that we lead the world actually, I think, in gun violence towards children. So this is pretty bad.
we are number one.
And I just don't think that there's any good because like Muslims aren't that big of an amount of people here, man. I think they're like what, like 30% of religious people here. I don't know. I know they're not large. It's not like a fucking majority here, but it's where are they attacking? Like, where is this attack happening? Just like I don't know what they mean when they say these things. It's just like I don't know.
Oh shit! Yeah, you actually just jogged my memory. I was talking about how a majority of terrorist attacks after 9/11 have been perpetrated by American-born citizens, and I don't want to sound SJW, but generally it's a white Christian. But he was talking to me, and he was like, there's Muslim attacks every day, but mainstream media doesn't report it. And then I pulled up a report that was done by the University of Alabama, where it was saying that Muslim extremists get more screen time on the news and more headlines and more media coverage, basically, than citizens of the United States who perpetrate attacks that happen.
Very similar.
Yeah, that happen to not be Muslim. The only difference there is that they're not Muslim, but they get, like, I think they said, like, it's the number is like mathematically impossible how high it is. It's like over 300 fucking %.
What? Holy shit! Jesus Christ! God, it just boggles my mind, man. It really does. It's just, I guess another thing that's kind of a problem with like these comments, and I'll get on to more of them, but like they don't. It's just, I guess the threshold for evidence or the threshold for reasoning for people is just real, and they just let's see what I can. Of course, you'll get the "I'll never forget," except, and I guarantee that people forget up until it's 9/11, and then they know they have to not forget. But regardless, let's see. Some of these are just kind of like just pretty neutral, but why do Democrats not care? So pathetic. What? What do you mean not care? Like, what is that supposed to mean?
Oh yeah, and they were saying shit like the liberals want to destroy America, and it's like, but they live in America.
They're gonna change the, like, okay, this like the fucking as actual initial post. Honestly, I might as well just read what the initial status says so things make sense when we're talking about comments. But the initial status is every time a Muslim okay, the grammar's bad. Every time a Muslim stand up in Congress and tells us they're going to change the Constitution, impeach our president, or vote for socialism, remember that you swore you would never forget. They swore they would destroy us from within. So pretty sure most of the people who said that are dead. The destroy us from within thing, and I think they were just really talking about like attacks on our soil, but. As far as a vote, see, this thing too is like, what are they referencing? Like, who is actually standing up and saying that we need to change the whole Constitution or impeach? I mean, yeah, there are people standing up to impeach the president, but I think that's fair. Honestly, he's done some dumb shit. But and then they're a vote for socialism. Like, what are they talking about? Are they talking about like Bernie Sanders?
It seems like they're just hitting all of the Republican talking points in order to elicit some kind of emotional response from their fan base.
Yeah, that's actually good. That's actually a good point you say that, because like they just kind of listed in everything that would be like, I guess that would irk your typical Republican. Just everything that would make them go. Well, you don't gotta if you don't want it. It'd be easier not to.
What? No, it's fine. It's fine, bitch. I already started it. I'll have to edit out the beginning of this, but it's fine. Would you like to start it out?
Oh well, I mean, yeah. Just this is a common thing that like. People who are activists and who hold positions about politics and religion, like it's like the new thing people are doing right now. They're coming up and making a channel, and they're it's great. I think it's a good way of having dialogue, and I highly advocate addressing controversial matters and maybe the evidence that goes with it, or whichever side, possible reasoning, just having conversations about things that are pressing matters in society, and sometimes just bullshitting a little bit too. That's fun. And I just think it's important because it's just, I want to find some way to have an effective dialogue with a lot of people. And I think establishing a platform for this kind of conversation to be held is important. So that's just kind of what I want to do. And some other really valuable points like gameplay, I want to get into that. That's great. So.
Yep, I definitely agree with you. We can basically call that our mission statement.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I don't think I'm. That was just kind of off the top, man. That wasn't even really, really good. But yeah, that really. I just wanted to try and I guess popularize discussion about certain things and skepticism and philosophy too, because I'm a fucking asshole about that. So just that's. I don't want to be like a skeptic community sort of thing, because the skeptic community bothers the fuck out of me.
Yeah, man. To be honest, I just want to educate people while educating myself.
Yeah, I like to talk to people to strengthen my arguments and to help find where they might not work and to understand better and to learn. It's really big and really important. But yeah, it's just I think it's a thing that is just great and very valuable. But that's pretty straightforward. It's just I guess we talk about like intention to do some bullshit skits too, because like I like that idea.
that is true. A little bit of comedy here and there to break up the rather serious nature that some of these videos might have.
Yes, that, and another point is like there will be other types of videos, like a myriad of different categories of how what videos and what they'll be like. I mean, I would like to even house debates, like conversations with people who have positions, and like moderate them slightly. I'd like to do that. I'd also like to review like the positions and arguments and evidence of viewpoints and just kind of like discuss them. I would also like to the skits like you're talking about. I'd like to review subreddits because there are a lot of hell funny subreddits, man, and it's such fucking great. It'd be really good material, and I guess I also just want to address like current events and things like that. So like it's just in simplicity the whole issue, but yeah, there we go.
All right.
Maybe this will be a thing. Maybe probably not. I'm just gonna assume it won't be.
Well, either way, that is the future of our channel summed up in 3 minutes. There we go.
Summed up in 3 minutes. So yeah,
It's fine.
that's
It's fine.